Hi, it's Alexander Russo with The Grade, and this is the Education Show. I am so very happy to have Olivia Krauth on the show today to talk about journalism and TikTok. There are lots of people on TikTok and there are lots of journalists, but there are very few people that I know about, at least, who are doing both so actively and so well. Olivia, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
For people who might not know you, which seems like an impossibility, please tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are famous, at least to me.
Sure. So I am currently an independent journalist in Kentucky, currently focused more on politics now, but I spent several years before that as an education reporter, mainly covering JCPS, which is the school system here in Louisville. Lots going on there, of course, as well as state education policy in Kentucky. I did that at a nonprofit news outlet called Insider Louisville for a little bit, and then switched to the Courier Journal, which is the Gannett property here in Louisville. Was there for a few years and spent my last year as a politics reporter before leaving to do my own thing. So I've been doing freelancing for about 2 years now.
Excellent. And since we're all fascinated slash horrified about TikTok and video first platforms and journalism in general, can you tell us a little bit about your sort of journey from traditional journalist, which is how you and I met? You were still at least somewhat a traditional journalist, to the force that you are now on video.
Sure. So I really started doing TikTok for journalism when I was still at the CJ. Um, Basically, there was this moment where somebody in a meeting that I was not part of was like, maybe we should go on TikTok. Maybe we should have a newsroom TikTok. And you know how those kinds of conversations go. Like somebody throws something out there, and then it's like everybody else's duty to figure it out. And so I kind of was helping them come up with their own strategy. And it ended up being that I just went off and did my own TikTok as a reporter, which you're right, is still pretty kind of abnormal to see, especially print reporters, especially in like local or regional level, um, be on TikTok and be reporting on TikTok. Um, and so I was doing that. Obviously, I was an education reporter when I started doing that, and then quickly switched over to politics and really took off then. And it turned into something that I found was worthy of building into my overall reporting structure because I was just getting so much attention, so much traction. Um, and then when I left the CJ about a year after I started the TikTok, I just kept doing it. And when it feels right, I still do it. It's a little bit different now because I have to balance it with all my other stuff. It doesn't feel like, oh, I have 40 hours in a week to fill. And so this is just something that I will do on top of that. So, but it really is just like doing it and doing it consistently and watch your videos like randomly go viral, which is so bizarre. Um, but that's kind of the short version of it.
Excellent. I'm gonna ask you 100 more questions about this. Don't worry about it. Speaking of unanticipated or unexpected mystery virality, can you tell us a couple of stories about pieces that you did that went big, and what, if any, you learned from that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even really stories specifically that would go big. So part of obviously being a politics reporter is covering the legislative session. And so it would just be random videos of people maybe testifying on something that I was covering, but it wasn't specifically like that was just the story.
Right.
So in Kentucky, we had Senate Bill 150, which was this massive anti trans bill aimed at transgender youth. It also dealt a lot with education and like, should teachers have to forcibly out their students to their parents, or like, can they avoid using preferred pronouns, stuff like that. So a lot of the videos were tied to that larger story. Um, but they would just, some of them would like not do as well. And then some of them randomly would just pop off,
Right.
and they would just keep going. Like I had that was 2 years ago, and I still have one video of a drag queen in full drag testifying against an anti-drag bill, that I still routinely get like views and likes and shares from. Um, so it's so bizarre how some of these things have staying power as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like this may be wrong. Please debunk this if you'd like. But I sort of feel like TikTok is a little bit like Twitter 10 or 15 years ago when people were discovering Twitter. For people who have a lot to say or have insights to share, who are quippy, I've always felt like you were quippy. Is that a fair
Yeah, that's fair.
description of you?
Yes.
Who maybe didn't have space to do it in their regular print news reporting. It just becomes a place. And then, like you said, you get this amazing response. And it's like having all sorts of additional readers or viewers or commenters. And sometimes it feels a little bit more free than the newsroom or the assigned story function. Is that a reasonable description of the discovery process or the incentives?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like all of it. It is so much more, it's very different than Twitter now, obviously.
Right.
It is, it does kind of remind me of like old Twitter where everybody enters kind of on the same playing field. And
Right.
if you have something interesting to say, if you have analysis to provide, um, if you're there on the ground and you're seeing like a protest, you can just upload a video of it and then people talk about it. And it's especially helpful when you're a reporter because you can, all these people that you don't know are commenting and they're like, oh, I was totally there and I saw this thing. Did you know about this? Um, and obviously, of course, it brings in readers too. But
Yeah, and old Twitter's a great comparison. Or even if you go back 10 more years to old school blogging, where all of a sudden you're having a direct relationship with people, many of whom can end up being sources, and they're coming on and really supplementing what you're doing.
yeah,
I have a conspiracy-ish question. Are you ready for conspiracy section of the podcast?
sure. Let's do it.
There are very few current or former education reporters who have dipped their toes into video first kinds of work. And I realized that two of them, at least, are connected in my mind, and that's you and Mandy.
Yeah.
So, is there like an origin story? Can we do like a Marvel Universe education TikTok thing where how do you and Mandy, out of all the current and former education reporters in the world, end up both doing very different things, but doing a lot of TikTok?
Right. I can't really totally speak for Mandy. I'm trying to remember when she first started doing TikToks because I remember them. Um, and I think she was still at the CJ and she was doing TikToks about her big reading investigation that I don't remember what year that came out.
Time is a wheel. No one remembers anything.
Yeah, but I remember, I feel like I don't think she was part of the kind of like CJ squad that was trying to come up with the CJ approach. Um, so I think it was like the CJ group gaggle, and then I started doing something, and then the CJ group was doing stuff as well for a little bit, and then Mandy started doing stuff when she had her reading investigation come out.
Right.
And I think Mandy's approach is really interesting because she does she's really good at focusing her TikToks on her her stories and her investigation, whereas I'm obviously we're in different roles. Um, I'm very much more like kind of beat reporter, so they're two different approaches.
Right.
She
You're sort
still
of
appears
live.
all the time on my feed, so
Right. You're sort of live TikToking
yeah,
ish or recapping, and she's doing something related to a story. And she obviously snuck off to Boston and is now doing similar things up there. I just had to ask. There are very few people I've been able to find. If there are more, let me know. You, Mandy, And then I don't know if you know her, but Jenny Abamu was a education reporter in DC for a while.
Yeah.
And she's now back, and she's unfortunately not doing education reporting anymore, which always makes me happy / sad for people. But she's doing a Maryland based recap every day, and she's having a great time doing it. She's getting that new reader, new response energy that you describe.
Yeah.
There are very few, though. This is a long way of saying, why are there so few people doing reporting like things? Or am I just not on the right TikTok?
No, I don't know. I think because I also don't see a lot. And I think that part of it is there's definitely some hesitation on TikTok. It seems like, oh, it's another thing you have to learn, another thing you have to make time for.
Right.
Generally, especially when you're dealing with like print people, there are a lot of people who don't want their face out there. They don't want to stand there with the camera. Like it feels weird and foreign to them. I think some people don't understand, I guess, how to make their journalism accessible on TikTok, if that makes sense. Like they're just like, oh, I wrote this story, but I don't know what I would I just read them the story? Like,
Right.
Something like that. They just don't really think about it like that. They prefer to leave the social media stuff to the digital producers and stuff. I think it's also just not really seen always as a social media platform that's really considered to be like an audience engagement tool in the eyes of editors. So I feel like for a while there, it was almost a requirement as a journalist that you had to have a Twitter. You had to be tweeting your stories out and sharing your story links. And if you're doing like a live coverage of some kind, you're expected to be live tweeting and you're supposed to be breaking news. And TikTok could very easily be used in that same way, but I just feel like people aren't making that connection.
Right.
And it's also just a hard thing to keep doing, like even now for me, it's just like I will get in a role and I will do like so many TikToks for a week or two, and then I won't do anything for 2 months. And so it's one of those things where you do have to be consistent in order to be successful. And so if people aren't seeing that success, it's like, why bother? And there are just like so many reasons.
It's interesting to hear. And nobody wants, I mean, I've seen some what feel like semi unwilling TikToks, and they look like sort of hostage videos. And you're
Yes.
like, oh God, please don't do that. And it is different than Twitter because you do have to get on camera or take a picture of your cat, or you have to do something, and often it is camera facing work, which makes people nervous. And journalists really like being off camera, a lot of them at least, the print folks that you and I know. Is it as someone who's done it, and I know that I hear you saying that there's some hard parts as well as the easy glory, but is there an argument to be made for more people doing it, or do you think people are being appropriately hesitant, or would you say, hey, based on my experience, this is just Vine version 5.0, you can skip this one and wait for the next thing?
Yeah, I would say I think, oh, it's tough. I have so many different opinions and they're all like clashing in my head.
I want them all.
Okay, perfect. So like one of my first things is like I'm like hesitant to tell people like go ahead and give it a shot. And because of all, especially in America, like we don't know exactly when it's going to transfer over to like whatever the next thing is. And I'd hate to have somebody sit there and like really feel like they're getting the hang of it. And then suddenly it's a brand new platform and one that they might not be comfortable doing. So there is
They
that.
would be cursing you, Olivia, but she made me do it.
Yeah, I can't be blamed for something like that. So like, please don't do it. But then I think there is a lot of room to at least try it. It's not a saturated market for kind of again the local regional reporter. The beat reporter, I think like if you are an education reporter or a politics reporter, it's especially like easy, something that kind of has some energy behind it. Um, if you're going out and you're like, somebody's going to be testifying at a school board meeting, like you can just take a video of that and post that. Stuff like that. So it's, you can always try, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then you move on. Um,
And it doesn't all have to be camera facing. Am I right? That's not a requirement. I mean, first of all, video is not going away, even if TikTok does go away. And I don't think TikTok's going away either, but video is not going anywhere. And am I right that it doesn't have to be camera facing like what we're doing right now?
right. Yeah, totally. I mean, the, some of my best videos have been like videos of protests, like people, like I'm just the journalist behind it. I'm not there, I'm not speaking, anything like that. So you definitely, if you don't want your face on camera, you totally can get away with that. And there are
Mhm.
also ways where you can like make your face really small on the TikTok and do like a green screen behind you of a new story.
Right.
So at least then you have something to point to and kind of distract from you. If that's, I found
Right.
sometimes that's a little bit more
Mhm.
helpful.
Mandy does a vision of that. She's in the corner talking about a globe story that's up on the screen behind her, and so
Yeah,
the focus is on the story, visually and otherwise. I think that's
yeah,
a nice compromise.
yeah. I think so too. Mandy came to my head right as I was like explaining it, so people should probably check hers out for like an example of what I'm talking about, because I think she does it particularly well too.
Can we talk a little bit about education journalism? I know it's not what you do full time anymore, but once an education journalist, always.
Yes.
And you still manage to include education issues in your political coverage. What did you say earlier this summer about the JCPS superintendent appointment being done in the most JCPS way
JC,
possible?
yes. So
Yeah.
true. Yes.
So we're at this interesting point now where everything's political, and I left my previous life, which was in politics, to come to journalism and to try to get education reporters to be more politically savvy in their coverage. All these years later, I sort of regret it because the political coverage that educators and political reporters produce sometimes just seems like it's advancing other interests, perspectives, or priorities. And sometimes I think education reporting should go back to schools and classrooms and learnings. What's your take on the possibility or the viability of sort of useful, politically savvy coverage of education and politics?
I think it's incredibly important because everybody, like, you're definitely not alone in this idea of it feels like everybody has like some sort of agenda. I think that the smarter reporters are about that kind of stuff, the better, just in general, the amount of coverage they're going to produce, the more likely like lawmakers and important people are going to trust them in their reporting. I'm not saying like, oh, they're going to love you, but they're going to be more likely to respect you. Um, and just to build that trust with readers and with your
And
audience.
what are the, for me, the signs of what I'm going to call uh, politically aware education coverage about politics include simple things like the story indicating why the report's being released that day, or what the press conference is trying to accomplish, not just what was said in the press conference, a little bit of the backstage motivation and a little bit of the meta story. Some people think that's too much inside baseball. I feel like readers want to and need to know why something is happening on the day it's happening, or why something isn't happening on the day it's happening. Not to make the coverage all about the horse race. I think I'm pretty much against that, but to help people understand the show that they're watching. You're watching a show, right? Circus, Broadway show, whatever. You're watching a show. Anyway, that's enough of my perspective. Do you have thoughts about like what makes adds quality to an education story about a political debate that you do or you see other people doing?
Yeah, I think kind of touching on your point there, context. And just like you don't have to get inside baseball. Trust me, I hate inside baseball. But you know, you can't just sit there and go to a press conference and be like, "Oh, they said this," and okay, bye. Like that's not super helpful.
Right.
And you're just ultimately kind of helping them with whatever their point was. Um, but sitting there and explaining, like, again, like why are they talking about this right now? And is there anything to gain from them making this push? And like one of the things that I do with legislation is you get a lot of legislation that gets is like makes the headline because it's like wild and then it never goes anywhere. So when you're talking about those people running for office or pushing for legislation, say, oh, like please remember that they're running for office and this type of stuff is ultimately like probably not going to pass, and it's just to kind of prove to their base like XYZ.
Right.
So it's really just a matter of the reporter knowing that stuff. And so institutional knowledge is so critical. Or if you're new, finding a way to get that institutional knowledge. Um, it can be very difficult to find that institutional knowledge with so much turnover in newsrooms and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Erica Green, another former educational reporter and favorite of many of us, she used to say, report what you find, but also report what you know.
Yeah.
Of which, if I understand it correctly, is that educational reporters were leaving sort of crucial background knowledge and context out, either presuming that it wasn't interesting or it wasn't includable because it wasn't formally reported. It was just, I know why they're doing this today, or I know what this is meant to accomplish. So you said it really well, and I would love to see more of that out there. Speaking of which, are there other Olivia Krauths out there? I hope there are. Are there other people doing the kind of leaving the TikTok part out for now? Are there other people doing political reporting and analysis related to education or politics or both? Are there people that you consider sort of favorites that I would love to know about, or other people might love to know about?
Yeah, I don't know. Because I don't think nobody's coming to mind immediately in terms of what I'm doing kind of with my Substack,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, it's analysis, it's context, it's journalism, and it's focused again, like on politics, a little bit on education in Kentucky, typically like, it's kind of focused in, but it's also not really an opinion writer. It's not like a columnist.
Right.
Um, I'm
There's a
sure
guy in
there, yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry to interrupt. There's a guy in California named Dan Walters who does a column. He's a great sort of Sacramento, ye old political commentator, and he's great. But he's just doing it in sort of on one platform and in one way. I bet there are others out there, and we'll all look for them, but not as many as there could be. You mentioned Substack. If I was an education reporter or editor and I only had time to do one new thing this summer or fall, Substack or TikTok?
Well, is this person currently working for like a newsroom or are they a freelancer?
Your call.
Because it's a different answer for each one. So if you're a freelancer, I would do a Substack. If you haven't already started doing that kind of thing, like a blog or a newsletter of some kind,
Right.
just because it is a place, it's a good spot for everybody to go You can share the stories that you publish elsewhere there, but you can also do original reporting, stuff that you couldn't find a home for.
Right.
And it is also, you can monetize it. And so it is like an additional revenue stream for you.
Right.
But if you're already in like a newsroom, I would say TikTok.
Huh.
Just
Why?
mainly because like a lot of newsrooms already have their own newsletter set up. And trust me, as somebody who has, started a newsletter both on Substack and then through like a Gannett type of situation, it takes forever. There's so many hoops to jump through to do the newsletter at like a newsroom level that TikTok is something a lot easier that you can try out and do yourself and build into your existing engagement strategy.
That's great advice. And then in terms of the summer and fall, and I want to ask you a little bit about what you're up to next as well. But in terms of the summer and fall, I feel like we're going to see we've already seen, and we're going to see some more sort of DEI ban, book ban, cell phone ban kinds of stories. Is there anything that you would want people out there who are being asked to write these ban proposal stories? I mean, DEI bans are sort of the CRT bans of 2 or 3 years later. Book
Yeah,
bans, the ban, there could be a beat on banning, a banning beat. Um,
absolutely.
is there anything that people can do to make their ban stories on any topic just a little bit smarter?
Sure. I think always being smart about language helps a lot. I understand for like SEO purposes or just for the public's general, like making the connection to what you're talking about, you will have to say like, oh, anti DEI or something.
Uh,
But
Phonics ban.
yeah, just like be thoughtful about what they're actually trying to do. I think we saw more issues with this back in the CRT days because suddenly everybody was a CRT expert and it is actually like really complex. So just be thoughtful about the words you're using. Um, oh no, I had another thing.
Is it okay to not just be thoughtful, but to be explicit in the piece about what you mean by ban or what you mean by DEI? Is it is that what you're encouraging, or just be careful in your thought process?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. Definitely be, explain what you mean and what exactly these bills are doing and calling for,
Mhm.
but then also just be careful about repeating buzzwords that already have like a negative political connotation. And one of the things that I started doing during the CRT craze was like some historian on Twitter had a good name for it, like the lie sandwich or something about a
Yes.
sandwich where if you're standing there and you're reporting on something and you know something's a lie, like you obviously like have to report that it's happening, but make it clear that it's wrong. Provide as much accurate information about it as you can, and then end it with like saying again, like this is not true, or it's like misrepresenting or whatever. Um, that
Right.
helps um, helps a lot.
Right. And going back to the political context, if it's a bill or a bill proposal, it may or may not have any chance of going anywhere, becoming any in effect. And that's a helpful thing, I think, to tell people as well.
Yeah.
Two last questions, and thank you again for doing this. And everyone who hasn't gone to your Substack or your TikTok should, of course, go there right away. We'll include all the information in the show notes. One question on our way out is, what are you up to this summer and fall? Either projects you're working on or things you're hoping to do. And then second of all, do you have a favorite fictional teacher, principal, student? Do you have a fictional education character that you like, that you're willing to share?
Oh gosh. I'll start with the first question. I am currently taking a little bit of a break from reporting freelancing. I'm still writing my Substack, but taking the next couple of weeks off. I have a few things I'm like waiting to hear back from. And so that'll completely dictate like my fall and then even part of like the start of 2026. It will be like politics, like journalism still, but like politics, maybe a little bit of education policy mixed in. So we'll see there. And then I'm looking over at my bookshelf. I'm not thinking of literally a single fictional character.
Well, I'll tell you one of mine if that helps,
Yes,
and
please.
we can add it afterwards if something comes to mind. There was a seemingly loathsome teacher on a Netflix TV show called Adolescence that was out earlier this year, and he seemed super indifferent and clueless, and and um, and he just seemed like the worst teacher ever, frankly. And I thought he was fascinating, and ended up getting to interview him. And so
Oh,
it could be a good guy, or it could be a non-heroic kind of educator. And it doesn't have to be an educator. It could be a student type character. It could be Robin Williams in whatever the name of the movie is that I'm not remembering right now.
Dead Poet Society?
Thank you.
I
Um,
haven't even seen that. So I was just like,
oh, okay. Oh, well,
um,
that's something you should consider seeing, or at least seeing a clip of.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I will think of that. I guess I didn't realize we could do like non-books.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But
Anything.
let me just go with like Miss Norbury from Mean Girls. Is that her
Oh,
name?
I don't know. I don't know.
I
Is
feel like
she?
I just came up with that name and
Is that
now that's out and I
is
feel
that
like it might be wrong.
Tina? Is that Tina Fey?
Yes, yes, Tina Fey's character. I'm
Okay.
thinking of her.
And she was sort of understood her students, but didn't maybe understand them as much as she thought she understood them.
Sure. Yeah. I just thought she was funny. Or the kind of eccentric drama teacher from the High School Musical series. I
Excellent.
I think that's yeah.
Let's go with that.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
either or.
let's go with that. Olivia, thank you again for talking to me in the middle of the summer and explaining all things TikTok, and great to talk to you. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.